Okay, hi everyone. I just wanted to talk very quickly about bilocation, and I hope I'm going to keep it fairly short this time. This came up because I've had a lot of questions about non-locality. So basically what we mean by non-locality is the experience of things that are not happening in an obvious way in your physical three-dimensional reality. Okay, so they are not local to you. They are happening out there somewhere and you are somehow aware of them. So for example, you might be suddenly aware of the thoughts and feelings of someone who's the other side of the world. You might actually feel them close to you. You might be having a conversation in your head with someone who's nowhere near you. You know, a telepathic conversation. These are all examples of non-locality. You might feel someone is about to ring just before the phone rings and it's actually them on the line. You might be having the same thought as someone else. You might have the same dream as someone else. I've just had that recently. It's a very similar dream with the same name in it, a man's name. I mean, you know, these sort of things are really beginning to escalate now, because we are moving into a place where we are actually shifting into another dimension, whether we believe it's happening, whether we're aware of it or not, whether we're still questioning it and thinking we're crazy for thinking it, it's happening. And so these experiences are becoming much more commonplace. The one that I want to tackle today, although I hope that this will help you to become more at peace with all of them, is bilocation. So in other words, the experience of being in two places at once. So this came up because someone I am blessed with the good fortune of being able to guide and mentor at the moment is a wonderful medium who's just at the beginning of her journey, really, in terms of the mediumship and how she's going to use those gifts, although she's been on a spiritual path for a long time. And she came to me because she had an experience of someone who is still physically, or was still physically alive, coming to her in the non-physical and explaining to her some of the reasons that he was not transitioning. So in other words, he was very ill and he was not making the transition. So he was kind of stuck. And she saw him in a meditation. So, and she wanted to know, first of all, you know, what she could do to help him. And secondly, is it normal? Was it normal? So, okay, we had a session together and I had a chat with him, and I could see that from his point of view, it was as if there were hundreds of hands holding him in place. And it was, you know, it was all with a loving intention. His family were finding it very hard to let go. They didn't want him to go. He didn't want to let them down. And so he was just holding on, and yet this other place was calling him, and his body was, you know, he was wanting to let go of his body. It just wasn't happening. And so we talked about how she might be able to help him. Basically what he said to me was that he needed permission. He needed them to let go with love, and he needed permission to go, because he really was ready. So she went away from this session. She did the most beautiful thing you can imagine for a group of souls. She actually she created a situation somehow that made it possible for him to get the permission that he needed and for them to lovingly let go. He had a beautiful passing. They had a beautiful memory, you know, a situation, a way of remembering him. And you know, it was just a wonderful experience for everyone, including him. And I know that he's very grateful for that. And also, the important thing to take from that story is that it happened, it was real. There was a very clear demonstration afterwards that it had all happened and it was very real. So what we need to do now is to start not questioning so much whether things are normal, because in another dimension, you know, I'm almost hearing the Twilight Zone music. When we move into another dimension, while we're still in our physical bodies, that, for most generations that we are consciously aware of at this time, is a new thing. We're breaking new ground. To be physically embodied in embodiment and to be consciously aware of the non-physical to this extent, it's new ground. So we have to accept that there are things that are not going to feel normal and natural initially, and yet the way to move through all of that with some peace of mind and some harmony and allowing it to continue to expand in our experience is to accept and to say, well, it's here, it's real, it's happening, and therefore it's perfectly normal and natural. And because you know you have that validation because of the work you were able to do because of that experience, just talking to you specifically now if you're watching. And so, and now she's come back to me and she's said, it's happened again with someone else. So, and again she's asking, is it normal? So I just really want us all to know that the experience, okay, what's unusual about it is this. We are used to understanding that a medium is someone who communicates with someone in the non-physical, in one of the non-physical dimensions, in order to pass a message on from them to someone else in the physical third dimension. Okay, so when we get a situation where we have two people, in other words, her and him, who are both utilizing a physical body, communicating in a lucid way in the non-physical realm, then it can be confusing because is he there where his body is, or is he here in the room talking to me about wanting to leave his body? So this is what we mean by location. It's possible to be in several places at once, but we're not going to go into that just yet. But he was in two places at once. So what we have to remember is that when you close your eyes, you already immediately start drifting into an altered state. You start drifting into, it's not a deeply altered state, but it's deeper than your conscious state. When you will it, when you decide to, when you go into a meditation, for example, you can go into an even deeper state. So we're talking about the alpha and the theta states where the brain waves alter completely and sufficiently for you to begin to access other levels of consciousness. So what would have happened is that he, either asleep or deeply kind of in pain, in physical pain, and therefore moving out of his physical body, traveling through dimensions, already experiencing them in preparation, you know, wanting to leave, but being stuck between worlds. Because she was in, I would say probably a theta state is my feeling about it. She was able to communicate with him on the non-physical plane, on the astral plane, let's just say. And he was basically, well, we could say he was bilocating because he was there and he was here, for example, in the room with her, okay? And looking at the work that she was able to do afterwards, we can say, yes, it was perfectly normal and natural. It's just that we're not used to experiencing it. A lot of people have a problem trusting mediumship, the idea that you can experience and communicate with non-physical forms and take messages from them, and a lot of people still have an issue with the idea that life survives beyond the physical body. So we're dealing with all kinds of levels of understanding here in this shift, and that's what one of the things that makes it so rich and amazing and such an incredible journey and an amazing experience and an amazing opportunity for learning. So I just really want to say, to answer the question, is it normal? Yes, it is. Well, let's get away from normal, because we don't need normal anymore. Let's face it, normal is for the third dimension. We don't need normal. So, but it's perfectly natural. Trust what you feel with all of these things. If it feels right, if it feels real, trust it. Start making a note of some of your experiences. You will find ways to validate them later on, but the best way to validate them is to just simply accept them and say, well, this is what is, so I'm going to accept it. Because your pathway is not necessarily going to be as clear-cut as you imagine it to be, because when you move into another dimension, there are infinite possibilities about what you might be able to do based on your experiences in many lifetimes, your preparations through these lifetimes, your preparation in this lifetime to do a specific kind of work. So if nothing else comes from this video, just let it be that you go inside, you notice what is, and you just decide to trust what is, to surrender everything that you know of the world that you know, the physical 3D world that you've known so far, and to just accept that what appears to be real is quite possibly real. Okay, I hope that helps you, and I hope it makes sense, and I hope it's not normal at all. Okay, keep the questions coming. Have a great week. Take care.